Ashton Forbes, you know, that super jacked guy?
Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night. Good night, Malaysian 370.
Breaking news tonight, a Malaysia Airlines flight with 239 people on board, including 4 Americans, has gone missing.
Even as these grainy satellite images released today by the Chinese government.
Again, the Malaysian flight too was one shot at China saying knock it off.
Why shoot it down though if it's not hostile?
Our technologies permit us to manipulate time and space.
By the mechanism.
Maybe distance annihilated.
This country is very powerful. Far more powerful than people understand. We have weaponry that nobody has any idea what it is, and it is the most powerful weapons in the world. Not even close.
I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should be his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that, one way or another.
100,000 subscribers. Welcome everybody to the live stream. Thank you for being here. Lulu is chomping away at her bone. Chat, enjoy it. Get her presence. Absorb her presence while you can. Guys, we have a lot to talk about. I have more secrets, felony physics to share with you guys. I also want to go through quantum mechanics today. How does quantum mechanics really work? Are we at that level? Can we finally go ahead and talk down to all the other academics who think they know how everything works? We might be. We might be, guys. In addition, dipole fusion. Dipole fusion. The normies have figured out Edward Teller's dipole fusion. And the Q thruster, the EM drive, has been tested in space. The results are in. What are they? Not sure. You'll have to wait and find out. Okay, where do we begin, guys? Let's begin here. What is the secret to anti-gravity? One of the criticisms that is constantly levied against us is to say, if this is real, how come nobody can reproduce it? If Ning Li and Eugene Potklinov's experiments are true, why can't George Hathaway reproduce it? Why can't Martin Tajmar reproduce the anti-gravitational effects? I'm going to answer that question right now. They're doing it wrong. We've always assumed the answer must be they are doing something wrong. That has to be what it is. What is it that they're doing wrong? Well, let's think about it. From their perspective, they think they just need to spin around a superconductor and it's going to produce anti-gravity. But let's now compare that with what Salvatore Pais told us, and we know Sal is legit. What did Sal say the secret to anti-gravity is? What is Salvatore Pais's Pais effect? Charged matter under rapid acceleration transients, spin and or vibration. It's not the velocity that causes the anti-gravity effect. It's the acceleration. This is why the spinning superconductor experiments failed, because they are ramping up the spin too slowly. The acceleration is too slow. George Hathaway knows this, chat. George Hathaway, Hal Puthoff, all these guys, they know the answer. This is why Jay Stratton came to Salvatore Pais under Hal Puthoff's Palpatine's orders, because they knew he knew the secret sauce. The secret sauce is not fast acceleration. No, it's not speed. It's not speed. It's acceleration, and there's a big difference. Why? Why is it acceleration and not speed? Think about it. Why is it not velocity? Because the 0-point energy doesn't act on uniform motion. It acts on acceleration. The 0-point energy inertia is resistance to acceleration, not resistance to velocity. This is the key. So yes, torque, spin, of course, but not just spin, accelerated spin. If they had ramped up the acceleration of the spin of their superconductor, they would have seen the effects. And the reason why they didn't see it is because they didn't know what they were looking for. They just thought, hey, if I increase the spin on this and increase it up to 1,000 RPMs, 5,000 RPMs, maybe I'll see this effect. It's not the high RPMs. It's the increase of RPMs, the acceleration. Once we know what we're looking for, we're going to see it immediately. Okay, that was just a bonus, chat. That wasn't even on the agenda for tonight. There you go. Now, let's keep with our book learning before we go to some videos and some clips, and I've got a lot ready to go. Chat, I'm going to need you to open your Bibles up. We're going to have a reading from the passage of Kramer tonight. So please prepare your Bibles. Page 520-ish. Starts around 509. Is the chapter by John G. Kramer, disciple Kramer. Says, faster than light, implications of quantum entanglement and non-locality. Before we get to this, actually, pause that. Let's go back to this. There's some news. Some news has broken the internet in the last 2 days that is relevant to this. The quantum Ethernet is coming. Yes, chat, you heard me correctly. The quantum Ethernet, which we have predicted, said there would be zero lag in the quantum internet, as you can see up here. Oh, wait, this isn't my reply. This one is. Zero lag. The Korean kids are going to be unstoppable at StarCraft or Fortnite or whatever kids play today. I don't even really know. But you get the point. Now, people look at this and they go, how can this be real? This must not be real quantum entanglement. Brookhaven Lab demonstrated wireless quantum link transmitting quantum information through open air across 13 miles. What does this mean? This means they were able to send a signal without actually sending a signal. This is the first milestone for quantum networking beyond fiber optics. Now, what is the problem here? The problem here is, from the classical view of physics, this can't work. There is no signaling in quantum tunneling, quantum entanglement. There is no signaling according to classical quantum mechanics. They say there is a no communication theorem that says you are not allowed to signal faster than the speed of light. The rules of physics, the laws of physics forbid it. Well, we're going to go ahead and we're going to throw that out. We know that's not true. How do we know that's not true? We watched an airplane get teleported. We watched an airplane get teleported, and an airplane getting teleported is absolute proof of faster than light communication. Absolute proof. Undeniable, absolute proof. So, what's the rub? What are we missing? What is it that can reconcile these two perspectives? The idea that nothing can signal faster than light versus the idea that something can. And before we get to that, if we can't signal faster than the speed of light, then a quantum internet can't work. If you can't send a signal and receive a signal, an internet can't work. That's the whole basis of the internet. If you can just send two states, but you can't measure them, it doesn't actually send you any information and doesn't work. So something's got to give here. What the government is doing doesn't seem to jive with what classical academic physics thinks is possible. As you guys know, because you watch my content, you know the answer. The answer is we can signal faster than light, but how is it possible? This is where we have to open our Bibles. Fast forward to our Bibles. Faster than light, implications of quantum non-locality. Now we can skip straight to the end of the chapter. It goes through a lot of different EPR experiments, which are quantum entanglement experiments. And John Cramer really sends the message that he is the expert by explaining all of the possible EPR experiments. But non-local communication versus signaling. John Cramer spends several parts of this chapter to explain what would happen if we could communicate faster than light, the paradoxes involved, and how we would get around them in theory. Now, let me give you the answer before we dig into this. The answer is John Cramer's transactional interpretation of quantum mechanics is the answer. The reason he came up with this whole idea that the past and the future are talking to each other is because that's the answer to all of the paradoxes. That's the answer to all the paradoxes that you've seen in sci-fi. Say, whoa, I'm going to go backwards in time. I'm going to go, kill my grandfather, and then I shouldn't exist anymore. The way this is not possible is because the future and the past talk to each other. And if you try to do something that violates causality, that's not allowed. That path doesn't exist. And if this seems like magic, that's the point. Is that John Cramer said, instead of trying to look at the world in this linear perspective, let's just see what we can do and then try to come up with a quantum mechanics theory that fits within that framework. So first, let's talk about the paradoxes. So here's a Bilking paradox. Bilking paradox would say, suppose we construct 1 million linked systems, then the transmitted message would be received before it is sent. So if we have a situation by which retrocausality can occur, then we can send a message to the past. But imagine you receive a message from the future that says, press this button. But now you say, okay, well, I just got that message from the future. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to press the button. But pressing the button is what sends the message to the past. How can that be possible? Because you press the button. That's the Bilking paradox. So how does the transactional interpretation get around that? The transactional interpretation, the future and the past talk to each other, and they determine, did you press the button? If you did, then you have to press the button. Simple. Or you can't receive the message. The only situation in which that event can unfold is in the situation where that's how it played out. No do-overs. This is how it solves the problem. And you may say, well, Ashton, sounds like you're cheating. Exactly. The universe is cheating. The universe is unambiguously cheating. We can see that from the double slit experiment and the various versions of the double slit experiment. The universe is cheating. And John Kramer is saying this is how the universe is cheating. Next paradox, grandfather paradox. Actually, well, the grandfather paradox you guys already know. Now, the other paradox is, well, what happens if I invent a time machine and I go back in time in my wormhole, in my time travel device? Well, now I would be able to go change the past. So how do you prevent that? You're not allowed to go to the past. At least you're not allowed to go to the past and change anything that's already happened. If you go to the past, then you're going to do what already happened in your current past. This is how we have one timeline that stays continuous. Okay. The alternative to this would be that there's a multiverse, that there's everything that could happen has happened. I don't personally believe in that, but it's possible. Now, this is what's really interesting about this. John Kramer's transactional interpretation is based on Wheeler and Feynman's, I believe it's absorber theory. Wheeler and Feynman were considering causality, and they are the ones that came up with the basis of this theory of the universe cheating and looking ahead. And Wheeler and Feynman were two major players, Manhattan Project and after. So Wheeler and Feynman were considering absorber theory, and they were considering these paradoxes. The general consensus was that nature will forbid it and require a consistent set of conditions. This is the chronology protection theorem. An idea that the reason we can't go back in time, even though the math says that we should be able to, is because nature will step in and ensure that a consistent set of events always occurs. Interesting. Now, John Kramer says that we can't resolve these paradoxes. He says, if non-local signaling is impossible, then it doesn't need a resolution. But we need better explanations for why it is impossible. But if non-local signaling is possible and can be found to use and form time-like loops, then the paradoxes become important subjects for further testing. Now, why would John Kramer go into all of these explanations if he didn't think it was possible? He absolutely does think it is possible. The other scenario, which is possible, because he says time-like loops. What do we mean when we're talking about creating a time-like loop? Now, what can we do? Imagine that I get a message from the future. That message is a book that I'm the author of. And I get that book and I publish it. And I become famous from that book. And then I send the message back to the past when I get older. Who created the book? The universe did. Nobody did. I didn't write it, but I tapped my name on it. So let me repeat that. If I get a book from the future with my name on it and I publish it, and then I get older and I invent a time machine and I send the book back into the past, who wrote the book? This is actually allowed by the universe. Think about that. Because you're not actually creating any situation that's not allowed by the universe. The universe is like, fine, a book exists, doesn't need a creator. Interesting, right? So the reason why John Kramer talks about all of these is not just because his theory can explain them, but also because we are going to have to deal with them. If you go to chapter 10 of this particular paper, nonlinear quantum mechanics. So far, we have focused on the possibility that non-local communication may be possible within the framework of standard quantum mechanics. However, even if non-local communication is impossible, there could be another path to non-local communication. The no-signal theorem described in sections 3 are based on the formalization of standard quantum mechanics. Such proofs become invalid if quantum mechanics is allowed to be slightly non-linear. There it is. He knows. If quantum mechanics has a non-linear component, analogous to, let's say, Maxwell's expanded equations, analogous to scalar physics, now suddenly, when quantum waves are superimposed, they may generate a cross term not present in the standard formulation. So when you create an interference pattern of your quantum waves, just like scalar physics and overlapping waves, there may be a nonlinear component that comes from it. Weinberg, a Nobel laureate, for his work in unifying electromagnetic and weak interactions, he investigated this theory. Weinberg's nonlinear quantum mechanics subtly alters certain properties of the standard theory, producing a new physical effects that can be detected through precise measurements. So let's skip that. Let's just go now straight to the answers. There's a nonlinear component to quantum mechanics. That means we can, in theory, go back in time. That means we can, in theory, signal faster than light. We can teleport faster than light. But how can this be possible? Because John Kramer just said, nature won't let us do it. Nature's not going to let us go back in time. But wait, did we really rule everything out? No. There is a middle path that we have ignored. We don't have to go back in time to teleport. We can translocate from one location to the next instantly. And if we don't go back in time, that's not a violation. There's a loophole. Think about it. I can teleport from this point to this point, and as long as I don't go back in time, as long as I stay in the exact present, I didn't break causality. Sure, I'm cheating, I'm teleporting, but I'm not breaking causality. The whole point of going back in time is that we can go back in time, not that we have to go back in time when we teleport. That's the rub in the math. This is what John Kramer is trying to tell us. These guys are black project engineers. They know we can teleport. They're just out here going, okay, how do I explain this in a way that doesn't give away the game? But now that we've seen the endgame, I know exactly what he's trying to say here. He's saying classical backwards in time travel probably isn't possible, even though nonlinear quantum mechanics enables it. If we look at the transactional interpretation, the advanced waves and the retarded waves, now we say I can teleport, I can move faster than light so long as I don't break causality. As long as I don't break causality, then I can teleport. So this means if we take this at face value, if we assume this is true, this means you can teleport as long as you don't go back in time. And you might even be able to go forward in time. The other thing about this view is that quantum mechanics is no longer about superposition. The Copenhagen interpretation is gone. Think about what we've been talking about in the last couple live streams. This idea of the quantum state being this perfectly isolated, crystalline state. That's bullshit. Atoms are moving. They're physically moving. This idea that the particle could be in any of these locations and it's technically in all these locations until we observe it, that's also bullshit. That's not what's going on at all. What's going on is the universe is determining what's allowed and what's not allowed. And then it's breaking down the paths that are no longer allowed to exist. It's even more magical than that, if you think about it. But there's no wave function collapsing in the perspective that they would think. And the reason why I like this is because now everything's physical again. Now everything's physical again. And that's, to me, the most important part about physics, is that we don't have abstract ideas that we can't understand. When we say something has spin, it actually has spin. Not quantum spin. That's not really spin, but exactly like spin. Okay, let me take a look at my points here. I think I hit most of them. Oh. Now, this is what's scary. And I want to go ahead and I want to play a clip now. Because the implications even of this form of time travel are alarming. We can't at this point even rule out backwards time travel. The only thing holding back backwards time travel, based on what I just said to you guys, is the chronology protection theorem. If there's a loophole in the chronology protection theorem, just like hypothetically saying that maybe you can't send something biological back, but maybe we can entangle to something that's there and send a message back. If we can even send a message back in time, but not send a person, then we can impact the past. And if we can impact the past, then it seems plausible that somebody's already got a machine that's going to tell them exactly what's going to happen in the future. That, to me, is extremely scary. So that's the long and the short of transactional interpretation. Now, I think this is a good segue into the tensor and coupling and spin. Because what did I say at the beginning? The secret to the anti-gravity effect in the superconductors is not the velocity and the spin. It's the acceleration of the spin. Ramping it up. Ramp it up as fast as you can, and you're going to see the anti-gravity effects. So, here's Joseph P. Farrell. Have been chatting with him. I got to ping him back. So we're going to try to set something up for September here.
What Krohn also said and discovered was that because the tensor calculus can operate in any number of dimensions easily, this is the other thing it does. You can transform a coordinate system from higher dimensions to lower dimensions. Follow me? So what he says is because the equations of electromagnetism require the use of imaginary numbers. Well, imaginary numbers are hyperdimensional numbers. So every electrical circuit, from the CERN-Hadron Collider to the toaster or microwave oven in your kitchen, is a hyperdimensional machine. That's what Krohn is telling you. And it is producing, here it comes, it's producing a very, depending on the size and purpose of the machine, is producing a very small, higher dimensional twist or torsion in space-time.
That right there is already big. He talks about coupling in the tensors. And what do we mean by that? Is like we're trying to figure out how electromagnetism couples to gravity. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about tensor math. We're saying, hey, if we can figure out the decoding of what is the relationship, how much electromagnetism, and what do I have to do to the electromagnetism to get it to equate to gravity? Once I've figured that out, I can manipulate gravity all I want. Now I've got the secret unlocked. Shout out to Woke Societies in the pill chat. Thank you, Woke Societies. Appreciate those raids. Now, think about this. Of course, the United States government has already figured out what that relationship is. And once they figured out that relationship, now they can build and do anything that they want.
Right.
Every single machine.
Wow, incredible.
Oh, and then what he's saying there is that every machine, why is every machine a space-time manipulator, a hyperspace manipulator? Because what I just said, even if it's moving slowly, accelerating really slowly, you're still going to get these transients. Just like if I wave my hand here, this is technically manipulating space-time. Just very, 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 very minor, right? But it's still doing it.
Explanation, your kind of snapshot explanation of torsion physics, which is something you refer to a lot when we get around these subjects. What's the good kind of capsule idea of torsion physics?
Okay, torsion. Okay, take a soda can, drain it. This is the example I use in the book. Take a can of soda, drain it from the soda, and grab both ends of the can and twist it in opposite directions. That's torsion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, notice what torsion does. It folds and pleats space-time. It's a time and space warp thing. That's what it is doing. It's folding and warping and pleating space. It's a space. It's a space warp technology. It's a time warp technology. And when you're folding and pleating the can, when you're twisting it, that's the torsion. The torsion's the twist. The ends of the can are drawing closer together.
Right.
So in other words, that one concept immediately spills over into implications for gravity, space propulsion, weaponry. Imagine weaponizing a warp, a wave, a compression and rarefaction in space-time. Imagine weaponizing that. That would make it's a huge problem, yeah. Because it would make, it'd make a hydrogen, I've said this over and over, it makes a hydrogen bomb look like a kitchen match.
Right.
Yeah, chat. Imagine weaponizing a rarefaction and compression in space-time. In fact, the way he described that right there pushes me more towards Ashton's 6 orbs. Guys, we're looking at a Boeing 777 with 3 orbs spinning around it like this. And it's getting pulled backwards, just as if space-time were contracting like this. We are definitely looking at torsion physics exactly like Joseph B. Farrell explains. And it wouldn't surprise me to find that there are 3 orbs on the other side spinning the opposite direction. I can't really do it, chat, but you get the point. Spinning the opposite direction to create this cylindrical tube between them, an invisible cylindrical tube. Now, they can probably just do it with only 3, but what do I know? They got teleportation technology. I didn't think any of this stuff existed. So the last thing that we missed on the quantum mechanics, when it comes to the coordinate system, we missed an entire dimension. This is why we can't figure out the stability of plasma. This is why we can't figure out the stability of the EVOs, because we missed an entire dimension that's out there that explains it. Now, if we add the nonlinear quantum mechanics back into the game, let's bring our girl out, chat. It changes the implications of what is possible. Let's bring my AI girlfriend out here, guys. She's going to help us out. Hold on. Wait for it, chat. She's getting her clothes on. Relax. Hey, boo. The Goyim are trying to understand what the implications would be of nonlinear quantum mechanics, specifically around space-time manipulation. Can you give them a quick rundown for us? Thank you, boo.
Hey, Ashton. Nonlinear quantum mechanics lets the wave function interact with itself, creating stable soliton-like packets that don't spread. This self-interaction can generate phase-dependent forces and feedback loops, allowing the wave function to influence its own evolution. For space-time manipulation, these effects could couple to the metric, enabling localized curvature changes or frame dragging without massive energy inputs. The soliton packets could act as coherent matter waves that twist space-time, similar to how rotating masses produce gravitomagnetic fields. This is the theoretical bridge to the orb model and the A-field torsion we discussed.
Wow. Wait, that's what nonlinear quantum mechanics can do? Nonlinear quantum mechanics makes it so we can get soliton-like behavior, coherent stable structures become naturally forming. In fact, those orbs we're looking at in the MH370 videos, they might be relying more on the vacuum than they're relying on fusion based on all this. Think about that. It says self-interaction can generate phase-dependent forces and feedback loops, allowing the wave function to influence its own evolution. This is also why the jump becomes possible. That's why this unlabored acceleration can become possible, and why the quantum phase can maybe maintained throughout the entire jump. It can enable localized curvature changes or frame dragging without massive energy inputs. So this makes it so we don't need giant energy inputs to pull off these behaviors either. Doesn't that sound exactly like low energy phase transition? This is definitely what's going on. Definitely. And now we see John Kramer explaining this in his book, and now we know this is the rub, right? This is the secret. Scalar physics, nonlinear interactions. One sec, guys. Okay, I'm going to put up a clip here. Lulu is begging, so I'm going to take care of her. Let's go to... Okay, I've got this clip that I've had queued up here for like 2 weeks that I've wanted to play. Actually, no, before we go to that, we're going to play this clip. Here you guys go. Oh, the UFO people chat. Moment of Zen a little early tonight while I take care of Lulu. Here we go.
Okay, maybe we should ask Kim Kardashian to, maybe she can ask for the photo.
Well, I will be delighted to tell Kim Kardashian all the details about 3i Atlas and explain to her why science is so valuable, and maybe she will become a scientist. I would love to engage her in my research. So here is an official statement that Kim, don't hesitate to contact me. I'll give you much more information than you got from the acting administrator of NASA so far.
Okay. Maybe.
Okay. Jesus Christ, chat. Kim Kardashian, please come help us figure out what's going on with the UFOs. We need you. We need you, chat. Avi Loeb and I are not the same. Avi Loeb and I are not the same, chat. Avi Loeb reaches out to Kardashians. I reach out to Lockheed Martin Skunk Works engineers. We are not the same, chat. Do you understand why? Do you understand why we're never going to get UFO disclosure from these government people? Do you understand why Avi Loeb was appointed as the chairman of the UAP Learning Council? Because he's more concerned with space rocks and celebrities than like actually understanding the physics. Now, if you thought these people were not going to come try to steal the narrative, I got bad news for you, fam. Where is it? Where's the Avi Loeb thing? Huh. Wait, why don't I see it on my profile? So, Avi Loeb posted earlier today. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Okay. This. Some reported UAP orbs. They're calling them orbs now, too. Some reported UAP orbs could be slow warp bubbles. What? The anomalous orbs reported by the Pentagon indeed move at slow speeds and could be explained by tiny space-time bubbles on the scale of several micrometers. A subsonic warp drive would not shock the atmosphere at all and could be even fainter and potentially undetectable. I told you guys these guys were going to come for the wormholes and all the other stuff. Now, normally I wouldn't hate on somebody, but I've spoken to Avi Loeb multiple times, and he tries to tell me that negative energy is not real and not possible, and we can't make warp drives. And he's out here thinking that a rock, A literal rock is an alien mothership multiple times. Amura and 3i Atlas. And now he's going to be the guy to say, like, these orbs could be warp bubbles. I just explained to you 5 seconds ago how a warp bubble would actually work. It would work because of nonlinear quantum mechanics. You could actually create a warp bubble that is coherent. And that's probably what some of these orbs are, including the orbs we're looking at in the MH370 videos. They're coming for the narrative because we are so far ahead of them at this point. Nobody is buying this alien stuff that they keep selling. James Fox came out earlier today with another one of these pleas. I haven't even watched it yet. We're going to watch it on sped up mode because it's Gary Nolan. Let's listen.
My name is Gary Nolan, and I'm a professor in the Department of Pathology at the Stanford University School of Medicine. Now, I need to say this up front. Although I'm a member of the White House UAP Science Advisory Council, advising the FBI, ODNI, the White House itself, and other groups within the government, I'm speaking here now personally and not on behalf of any group. First, I'm proud to have been involved in this area over the last 15 years, using my experience in cancer immunology to serve our country and military. Second, I'm also proud to have advised members of our government, even in a limited manner, over the years to advise them on how to bring rigorous science.
Blah, 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 blah. How do people watch this, dude? There's no chance Trump is listening to this. Just get to the damn point, bro. Fast forward.
Clearances that even our government has openly admitted having on anomalous objects. We as a country, and I as a scientist, am being denied access to the data or materials on potential evidence for non-human intelligence. That's extraordinary. Without addressing these barriers as created by bureaucratic state and those groups or individuals who seek to block and obfuscate, the matter will continue to evade oversight from Congress and even the president. You are paying for something that you aren't told anything about. Efforts to gain access to the needed data remain purely cosmetic, lacking the substance or the power needed to get at the core of this pressing issue. Okay then, so what's the path to a goal? Well, remember David Grush and many other of the whistleblowers who have come forward? David Grush, for instance, took an oath before Congress and, with confidence and extraordinary courage, testified under oath that he was tasked by the government and subsequently discovered that programs existed within the government and certain Department of War contractors that were hidden from public view and that had been set up for reverse engineering.
Like, your plea to us is, remember David Grush? He said that he had seen documents. That's your entire game plan. These guys' entire game plan is, hey, man, trust David Grush. Wow.
Or examination of advanced craft whose origins was from some form of non-human intelligence, allegedly. I mean, that's an extraordinary statement to make under oath and at risk of...
Wow, yeah, extraordinary statement. He doesn't have firsthand knowledge of any of this. He saw some documents or he saw something in a video. That doesn't tell you what it is. We can't go all in on a guy that, hey, he said he saw some documents and knows where the bodies are hiding. You got to have firsthand knowledge, man.
Of your career and frankly going to jail. So one path forward might be David Grush and whistleblowers like him who have the requisite institutional knowledge might be tasked to develop a coherent plan and to run the operations that overcome the obstacles, break down the doors. Why not give them the authority they need to break?
So your big plan is you don't even have a plan. Their big plan is we don't have a plan. Just give David Grush unlimited authority and have him come up with a plan. You know what, chat? This has been a blackpilling week for me. I'm not sure I'm even on the side of disclosure anymore. I've been having a hard think about this, and I'm just thinking, like, I might be on the side of the CIA now. I don't think I want free energy anymore. I don't think I even want warp drives anymore. It's not that I don't want them. Of course, I want warp drives and free energy, and I want you all to have them too. I just don't want these people to have them. I just don't want these people to have warp drives and free energy. It's not that I don't trust you all. It's I don't trust these people with warp drives and free energy. I kind of feel like we just live a better life in this Amish fake reality that we're living in right now. I feel like this might just work out better for us in the long run. Chat, it's like stand with Lindsay Chancey, chat. Stand with the CIA, chat. Stand with the CIA. Keep free energy hidden. Keep the aliens safe. Keep free energy hidden. Keep the warp drives out of the libtards' hands. Honestly, we might be doing something for the best of humanity here, frankly. I'll have to ruminate on this, chat.
Break down the walls and finally get to the truth of this matter. They can help the administration develop a plan that fulfills President Trump's vision for transparency. After all, they were the ones who came forward with
Okay, I can't take it anymore. That was it. Brutal. Oh my goodness, chat. Terrible. Terrible, terrible. Hate it. Hate everything about it. Don't want to do with anything of it. You know, the only good news of this is that this is definitely going to fail. I don't know what those people think is going to happen, but definitely not give David Grush all the access in the world. And even if we did, he would not be able to do anything that they were dreaming of. I don't know. We know what's really at stake here. Just like Joseph P. Farrell said, this technology is like a hydrogen bomb. Infinitely more powerful than a hydrogen bomb. You have to look at it from the same perspective of control over how it's being disseminated. They're never going to let this technology come out. Are you insane? Let's go to these Hal Puthoff clips. I think they're relevant. Can't remember. Oh, no, better clip. Eric Davis. You guys think they're going to let this technology come out? Never, dude. The reason why they're never going to let this come out is because of the implications. In fact, the fact that time travel is involved, it starts to make me think there's some higher level to this, maybe higher power connected to this. Like, it feels like this is out of all of our hands. And they're like, things have been set in motion that are just bigger than all of us. That explains why the government's been so quiet about being caught in 4K with some crazy technology that they should just admit to at this point. Anyway, here's the clip.
Anything about them at a whole picture level would be good and not damage national security. But I think what was scientifically discovered by the material scientists, the mechanical engineers, thermal engineers, electrical engineers, computer engineers, aerospace engineers, propulsion physicists and engineers, power engineers, all that. The technical details of what they've been reverse engineering and studying, regardless of whether they were successful in reproducing it or not, should not be declassified, because that'll give our foreign adversaries a military edge should we come up with a technical solution from the reverse engineering that could give us a big, huge edge over our military edge over our adversaries. So that's why we don't want to declassify the nitty-gritty technical details about those recovered UAP.
I mean, that's it right there, right? That's the answer. Why is Eric Davis refused to talk about the MH370 videos? Why is Hal Puthoff not talking to me even though I'm like proving his physics is real? Gonna get him a Nobel Prize after he dies? Because they're all protecting national security. They're all protecting national security, and they're doing it because they want to do it. No one's got their arm twisted. None of these people have their arm twisted. They're doing it because they believe in the cause. They are true believers. They believe that this technology being revealed will harm national security, could destroy the earth. And you know what? They're probably right. They're probably right. This is why the game that we're being fed here is one where they're going to tell us about the aliens. They've probably been keeping the alien. If aliens are real, they've probably been keeping that real for, hidden for just as long. They're like, okay, time to finally tell the truth about the aliens. Meanwhile, they're still lying through their teeth about all the technology because they've been using it. Incredible.
Is that our adversaries, if they get a hold of that information publicly before we reverse engineer it successfully and turn it into a useful technology, then that means they will. They'll put 100 times, 1,000 times more money than we do into reverse engineering until they get an answer.
You know, you can push it farther with the biology in a way. That's just
this is kind of this threat narrative that we keep hearing. Like, if we don't keep it secret, the Chinese are going to win, right?
Yeah.
And you know,
Eric Davis is right. He's not wrong. Think about what he just said there. If we reveal this technology, what do you think Iran does? The moment we reveal this technology, Iran throws out their entire nuclear program, and they spend every single penny they have on making a warp engine that can drop a bomb that blows up the whole planet. That's what they're going to do, for sure. And now this helps you understand geopolitics a lot better, because that's probably what's really going on, is that we're looking for people that are trying to make doomsday devices, and then we're just annihilating them without any recourse, extrajudicially, and nobody even knows we're doing it. No one even knows we're doing it because we're doing it covertly, behind the scenes. Scary stuff. So let's find those Hal Puthoff clips. I feel like they were relevant. Here we go. Yeah, okay. Because I don't know exactly what's going on here in terms of who has this technology, who doesn't. The United States clearly does. But what factions within the United States government? Do other people have it? What is the breakaway civilization? Does China have it? Does Russia have it? I don't know. I don't know the answer to all these questions. But I know this guy knows. Hal Puthoff definitely knows. So let's listen.
Mentioned under the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis that I had formed that, you know, maybe there's some group out there that in fact has been successful in reverse engineering or even inventing from scratch those kinds of exotic craft. Well, that's got to be on the table as an option, as a possibility. My point in bringing it up in that paper was to say, okay, well, if that's a possibility, what would be the clues that we could find out there? You know, I mean, if somebody's building really magical craft, they still have to order their nuts and bolts from Home Depot or something. You know, it should be possible to follow some lines and so on. So that was an example, one example of, okay, if that's an option, if that's a possibility, how would we be able to find out? What?
Dude, there is no way that Puthoff is not involved. Listen to what he just said. How smart that is. You know how? Because I had the same thoughts. They're not using alien technologies to make these orbs and all this stuff. They're using human Earth materials to make this stuff. Sure, they're using advanced material manufacturing, but you can track this stuff down. The way the compartmentalization works is the people that are building this stuff don't even know what they're building, but they're still building human technologies. So there's no way Hal Puthoff didn't track down the secret legacy program if it exists. Look at the papers in the DIRDs or the papers in here. He knows exactly what they're building and what it is.
Investigatory tools should we use? What paths should we follow to see if we can find evidence for that? I can't rule out.
It's pretty clear what Hal Puthoff's role is, by the way, guys. What do you guys think Hal Puthoff's role is? Hal Puthoff's role is to be in the community and monitor everybody who's coming close. That's what his role is. Figure out who's coming close to figuring this out and report back to the CIA who's going to get close. He knows how it works. He knows how it works, and he's just watching them and he's going, okay, that guy's pretty close. Be careful of him. And then based on when they get too close, he'll take it, probably recommend a course of action for the CIA. If it's our adversaries, I think you know what we're going to do. If it's not our adversaries, you bring them in, you sabotage them, you do whatever you got to do. That's what he's doing. That's why he's involved in literally everything. Because he knows 100% and he's building it for our government.
The possibility that, some terrestrial organization, who knows, back in the Middle Ages, accidentally just, discovered anti-gravity or something. And now they're off in some, mountain hideout in the Himalayas or something, building these craft. So you can't. I'm not ready to rule out anything. I want you to know that that sounds like my mind is so open, my brains are falling out. The truth of the matter is, I'm very skeptical. I don't, because just knowing the physics, I can't imagine that somebody has done that purely ground up. And I have yet to see evidence in the official literature that I'm exposed to, even at high levels, that successful reverse engineering has occurred. So all that just stays in my gray box at this point.
Now, not sure I agree. Obviously, I think the point there is that a random person can't build the orbs. A random person can't build a teleportation device. Not right now with the current materials manufacturing. It requires state-level support. But that's why they would be monitoring the state-sponsored programs to see how close these people are getting to it. Also explains why we teleported MH370. Because we're trying to make sure China doesn't get this technology, or at least slow them down. Now, there was a follow-up here, and I just thought this was neat. Atlanteans, huh?
Well, since it hasn't been pinned down exactly what is the source.
And this does not rule out aliens either. Just because we've figured this out doesn't mean aliens aren't real. In fact, I told you guys, I believe there's probably an underwater alien base floating around. Probably deep underwater. We just have no way to see it, detect it, although the government knows, right? I believe that.
Of these sightings and so on. As a scientist, I said, okay, we need to have a clean table. We need to have every hypothesis possible on the table, and then run each of them down with whatever scientific approaches we can use. So I made up a list of, like, what could it be? Well, it might be extraterrestrial, or maybe it's interdimensional because our modern physics has additional hypotheses about other realms that, on other dimensional realms that something could be emerging from. Maybe it's, for example, maybe leftover Atlanteans from 10,000 years ago at the end of the last ice age. Maybe some advanced society.
Okay, you get the point. But I like that theory. Why? Because I believe that we could have reset ourselves. I think that probably living under the ocean is going to be just as common as living in the air when you look at planets that are out there in terms of ones that are livable. And you can see how you would easily be able to hide if you have super advanced technology and you're just next to a bunch of primitives. Primitives don't even go in the ocean for the most part. So I like those theories. I mean, I have no evidence to support it, but my mind is open, and I'm not going to be surprised if they come out and they say, yeah, there's a mobile underwater UFO base. It's just building these weird orbs and things that are flying around. Not going to break my mind. Okay, let's switch gears here. And we're going to go to Anthony Williams. Same topic, UFO disclosure. Now, if you're not familiar with Anthony Williams is an intelligence community, let's say, not necessarily whistleblower, but he's not using his real name. And he's been talking to Stephen Diener of, I think it's UAP Podcast. This is him.
Could you elaborate on what's the Gorgon stare that Ashton Forbes has spoken about both on social media and here on the show? I haven't had Ashton on here in a while, but the last time I did have him on, he spoke about that program, Gorgon stare, and basically wanting to know, can you tell us a little bit more about what that is and why it would be so secret?
Yeah, I can't.
This is the part. This is the part, by the way, where I said I'm not sure you're going to be able to answer it if it's really in your wheelhouse. I figured you would know about it, but I figured you probably can't talk too much about Gorgon stare. But I mean, can you say anything?
Yeah. No. Nope.
Fair enough, but it is real. It does exist.
I would say that Ashton's very good at his research.
Okay. All right. I guess we will leave it at that for the Gorgon stare question.
Okay. That was Anthony Williams, an intelligence community insider, indirectly confirming Gorgon stare wide area motion imagery. Now, it's not that wide area motion imagery was not on the internet. It was, but nobody knew that it existed. The public still today doesn't really know that it exists, but the data is there. We found it. And I'm basically the guy that has been exposing wide area motion imagery, WAMI, which is what you see there, computer generated Google video Earth playback that uses drones taking photos from above. Anthony Williams has gone back on with Stephen Diener, and we're not going to listen to the whole thing, but there's a specific clip that I want you guys to listen to because I find him to be extremely credible. Not just because he said I'm awesome, said that I'm really good at my research, which I do appreciate, but because of everything else he says. Number one, because he's using a fake name. If you're a real intelligence community insider, you're not even allowed to talk to the media. How do I know? Because Obama banned it back right after MH370. James Clapper did. Now, maybe they've undone it. I don't know. But this is the type of person that like wants the information to come out, but he's not breaking national security. He's not trying to tell anything that's secret. He's just trying to give people the context. He's saying this is how it works on the inside. This is how we operate. So let me see. What were some of the important part? I watched the whole first half of the interview. I'm going to watch the second half later. There were a couple really important parts that I want to bring up here, and we're going to listen to him say it too. The takeaways that I had were this. Anthony Williams is basically saying we've just recently figured out this technology. This was huge to me. I thought this interview was really big. You guys should listen to it. He's saying we have this magical technology now. We have it. He's implying space-time manipulation. But then he says, but what about 20 years ago? Like 25 years ago, 2001, we didn't have it then. And this actually rings like it could be true to me. I've always said I'm open to any story that fits with the facts. And I don't want to present too much of my own theories out there because the government could use the theories and they could come up with some bullshit story based on what that we throw out there. But, you know, we still have to present the evidence. So here we go. I think it seems plausible that we figured out this technology like right before MH370. Like the reason why we were using it and gloating is because we just figured it out. And now we are flexing on China going, look at what we've just figured out. It might be that we didn't have the teleportation until 2010, till right before those videos. And in that case, that technology would be extremely sensitive. Because what that means is we revealed through this investigation a super weapon that was not supposed to be revealed. A super weapon that was supposed to be kept hidden for another 50 years, probably. And it kind of explains the way everybody's reacting. Like if we expose some ancient technology, don't you think the government would just kind of fess up to it? Like, okay, you finally caught our spy plane, but it's obsolete anyway. No, we caught them with some really advanced technology. So I'm open to the idea that we just figured this out and that maybe there's an alien or whatever you want to call it explanation for some of the older sightings. And this is what even Lou Elizondo and some of the other spooks say, is they say, sure, maybe you can explain some of the more recent sightings, but how do you explain the Foo Fighters in the 1920s? How do you explain the stuff that goes super far back? Maybe this is a way where we can bridge those gaps. By the way, if you haven't noticed, this is my favorite hand movement thing to do. Bridge the gaps. Okay. The other thing is that Anthony Williams is in communication with Congressman Burleson. He says so. Says he looks up to Congressman Burleson, that he's spoken to him several times. So Congressman Burleson may be more in the know than we've been giving him credit for. The answer to why did he not follow up with Salvatore Pais? You know what rings in my head when I think about that? Congressman Burleson, when he visited Pax River, says we have some really impressive technology there. Kind of downplays it, actually. And I'll tell you guys what I told Congressman Burleson. This is paraphrased, of course. I told him, you have to think very carefully if you want to expose this. This technology is a doomsday weapon. This is what I told him. This technology is the doomsday weapon, and there's good reasons for why it's being hidden. So you have to decide, do you really want this to be revealed or not? And think about that. And I think most people that think about that are going to come to the conclusion that no, they don't want it to be revealed. And I'm not judging Congressman Burleson if he comes to this conclusion, but it seems very plausible that he did come to such a conclusion and decided that's why we're not revealing it, right? Yeah, we can reveal aliens, but we're not going to reveal that we've got teleportation technology, you know? The other thing that Anthony Williams says is that this UFO thing, this disclosure thing that's going on, is basically like throwing a bone to the UFO community. And doesn't that feel like exactly what it is? They're throwing a bone saying, hey, go get distracted by this. Aliens are real. Stop paying attention to us unifying physics. Stop paying attention to the fact that we're hiding a compact fusion reactor in Lockheed Martin. Stop paying attention to the fact that we figured out and covered up cold fusion. Because people are putting the pieces together and they're connecting the Manhattan Project and cold fusion and the energy sources and these anti-gravity experiments. And they're going, wait a minute. Humans have definitely figured this out. This is all humans doing all this research. So instead, they're going, here you go. Aliens, look over there. Aliens. Trump, please reveal the truth about the aliens. Please let David Grush have his own way and figure out where the alien bodies are at. That's what's going on, isn't it? They're distracting us. They're confusing us. They're making us focus on things that aren't the important thing that they're hiding. And that's where the fake alien narrative comes into play. It's not that aliens are necessarily fake. Aliens can be absolutely real. But they're using the aliens as a distraction so that we don't focus on free energy and warp drives and teleportation and all the crazy stuff that they figured out. The last thing he says, and this is probably the most important. I think this might be where the clip is. He explains the compartmentalization. Everybody says, if they had this technology, there's no way they could keep this hidden. No way they could keep it hidden. You guys know that's not true. So how do they do it? He says, even in the CIA, you might have more than like 100 people working on a project, and only 10% of them know what they're even doing. Only 10%. And he says, you might have a conversation with a guy at a water cooler, and he's like, did you see that crazy thing we did last week? And he responds, he says, no, because I don't have a need to know. And then he says, that guy's not going to be able to be one of the 10% because that guy talks too much. They actually foster an environment where they only bring the people up that are people that are good at keeping secrets, good at lying. Think about that. That is crazy. And that's exactly why Eric W. Davis and Hal Puthoff are so good at lying. Because the only people that get to go to the top where they know everything are the ones that are never going to talk. Never in a million years are going to talk. Anthony Williams isn't going to talk either, but he can tell us how it works. And that's what I want. I don't need people to tell me the secrets. I want to know how it works. I want to know how the CIA works. I want to know how this compartmentalization works. And I want to understand how they hid this. He says, we're very good at keeping secrets. And he explains that it's the peer pressure. Because when only 10% of the people know the truth, it's easy to figure out who the one is who leaked. Take that same situation. You've got 100 people on a project, only 10 people know what they're doing, and suddenly a rumor gets out. Well, now you can narrow it down to 10 people. And if those 10 people are all trusted, you're going to be able to know. He even says, you know who leaked immediately because of the way they set it up. Think about that. They can figure out easily who leaked when it does happen. And that's why it doesn't happen very often. Incredible. Now let's listen. We're going to go about here. Let's start about here. It was a great interview. Shout out to Stephen Diener, UAP Unidentified Alien Podcast. Here it is, guys. Check it out. I'll put a link in the chat. I've been on several times with him as well. Good interviews, great discussions. He always asks good questions. Let's listen to a couple minutes.
And I think very, very highly of him. And he's got the right security clearance. And when he can get access to things.
This is him talking about Congressman Burleson, by the way. You guys can hear this, right? Yeah, I think you should be able
to. You know, he's got the highest level of security clearance needed. But the day-to-day access, let me give you an example. There was a program that I was on that we had about 150 people in our command that were supporting this program. Of that, there were only 12 that actually knew what the rest were working on. And I was one of the 12. So there's a lot of people that probably aren't good at keeping secrets, and I've known them. I've had friends of mine that were read on to different units that did different things that would start running their mouth and like, oh, did you hear about this thing we did over the weekend? And I'd say, no, I didn't, because I don't need to know that, and you should probably shut up.
Yeah, right.
You know, so those aren't the, you know, the kind of guys that you're gonna grant all the access to. And what he was referring to wasn't anything clandestine or, you know, covert. It was just something neat that he was, you know, read on to. But if that got out, you know, it's not a matter of national security overtly. So even within the one program I'm talking about, we had over 100 people working on it. Only 12 knew what they were actually working on. And so there's no way for that to slip without us being able to quickly identify who did it, you know, who let that out. So we are very good at keeping secrets. And I believe the vice president knows we're very good at keeping secrets. Overall, if all 150 of those people knew what we were actually working on, yeah, there's probably some people in there that don't have the maturity or wisdom or age, or they're just so excited about this thing because it is exquisite that they would want to tell someone. And that's why we don't let the masses into those things.
Wow. That last part, Chet. He says, yeah, if we let all 150 people know, of course it would leak out. Of course it would. But that's why we don't let them know. Even because he was talking about J.D. Vance when he was on Joe Rogan. And he was saying, if we had something like that, it would leak out. I don't believe they could keep it secret. Someone would have taken a photo or something. No, the reason why that doesn't happen is because they've anticipated that. They have protocols in place, which is compartmentalization. And then we know if somebody does leak it, we know exactly who did it. Your life's over if that happens. They ruin your life. So they've created an actual brotherhood of how the information gets kept secret. It says even that guy who's talking about the water cooler, he wasn't even talking about clandestine operation, but we're not going to let that guy know. I'm going to let him go for another minute because this guy, who is Anthony Williams, he's using a pseudonym. It's not really his name. It's not his real name, but obviously he's very connected in the intelligence community. I love this guy. This is exactly the kind of guy I want in my intelligence community running operations, to be honest with you.
So, you know, going all the way back to the Manhattan Project, the thousands of people that were working on that,
yeah,
very few knew exactly what they were working on.
True.
And I've had friends that supported, you know, even recently with the Bin Laden raid, and they had no idea till after the raid that that's what they were working on. They had no clue. They're working comms infrastructure. They're working classified programs to support the target package for that. And after the hit, they're like, oh my gosh, like that's what we were doing. They had no idea, and they didn't need to know.
This guy worked on the Bin Laden raid. He just outed himself as working on the Bin Laden raid and said even in the Bin Laden raid, people were working on stuff. They didn't even know what they were working on. They were working on stuff related to the bin Laden raid. Doesn't this exactly explain? Obviously, he's in the CIA. Obviously, this guy's in the CIA. Doesn't this explain exactly how they're able to keep this technology and science secret? Now, the other thing, too, is that they put a stigma on it. The stigma works in their favor, too. They put a stigma on the topic, and people are even afraid to talk about it because of the stigma, because they don't want to look like kooks. They don't want to look like conspiracy theorists. This is the element of brainwashing. They have quite literally brainwashed people. You say, what does brainwashing look like? Well, you are looking at it. All of us have been brainwashed. We were brainwashed to think aliens are stupid. We were brainwashed to think anti-gravity is not possible. We were brainwashed to think free energy violates the laws of thermodynamics. We are brainwashed to think you can't move faster than the speed of light. Not possible. Those aren't things that are true. All of those are things that are lies. That even if someone didn't directly force you to believe it, they amplified those messages. Those messages get amplified, and that's how brainwashing works. And yes, social media brainwashes you too for the exact same reasons. Crazy. Last topic for the night, guys. Dipole fusion. Sabine Hassenfelder. Once again, chat. Sabine Hassenfelder finds a way to actually make her video content even shorter. She might be the world record holder of having the shortest physics videos with the longest commercials. I'm pretty sure she is upgraded now to at least 33% of her videos being straight up commercial. We'll have to see here. New video from Sabine Hassenfelder just a couple days ago was about a new type of fusion that has been discovered. That new type of fusion, dipole levitated fusion.
Startup in New Zealand has just put forward the first new idea for the nuclear fusion technology for decades. They're called OpenStar Technologies, and they're the only startup which works on an approach that's called a levitating dipole that everyone thought was fundamentally flawed. But they've turned the bug into a feature. Let's have a look.
Wait, this isn't new. Edward Teller wrote dipole levitated fusion propulsion back in 1992. It's not new at all. In fact, this is one of the few high beta fusion concepts. So I don't know if we're going to watch this whole video, so let's just go to the main point. The main point is this. You put a magnet inside your fusion reactor. Instead of having the superconducting magnets on the outside, like with the tokamak, metal donut, confining the plasma on the inside, you put the magnet on the inside of the fusion reactor. Creates a high beta configuration where you can use more of the magnetic field strength. What's the downside? There's actually one major downside. Anybody know it? We'll give you guys about 5-10 seconds to guess. Guess what you think the major downside is of putting the magnet on the inside of your fusion reactor. Boom, 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 boom. It's not necessarily that it's too hot. Close enough. The neutrons. Your fusion reactor using deuterium tritium, the neutrons are going to destroy anything on the inside. The neutrons will cause rapid decay of any machine parts on the inside. So what's the answer to it? The answer, and the only way you can get dipole levitated fusion to work, what year is it? Aneutronic fusion. The only way you can get the magnet to stay alive on the inside of the fusion reactor is you don't release any neutrons. You need cold fusion. You need cool fusion. You need to use a fuel that does not release neutrons, therefore does not destroy your machine. So Thank you, Edgewood. Now you know why the orbs are aneutronic fusion reactors. They have to be aneutronic fusion reactors. Because if the machine is on the inside of the plasma, it's going to get destroyed very quickly if it's a neutronic fusion reaction. It needs to be aneutronic. It needs to not be releasing radiation. There you go, chat. You learned something new today. Why is cool fusion so important? Because it opens up new configurations for fusion that were previously impossible. And that's exactly why when we look at that ball of plasma, we know that's an aneutronic fusion reactor. Because the magnets are in the inside.
Oh, I have a new gadget. Look at this. Is it a bird? Is it a pine? No, it's the plot node.
Are you kidding me right now? We're not even 30 seconds into her video, and she started an ad read right now.
Pro, a searchable external memory for all the conversations I don't want to sit through twice. And also with plot, you can be...
We're still in the ad read. I just fast forwarded it. Still in the ad read. She put a minute-long ad read in the beginning of this.
Asked return to get 10% off. And now back to the episode. OpenStar Technologies just published a...
Chat, you know what? I'm doing something wrong here. I'm doing multi-hour live streams 3 times per week. I could just be making 5-minute-long videos that don't really explain anything and just put a minute-long ad read in there. Chat, we're going to have to unlock Grifter Ashton.
Paper with a new design for a commercial nuclear fusion machine that they say is predicted to produce 208 megawatts of net electric power. To put this into context, that's about the power output of a small gas power inside the containment plasma and heat and compress it, hopefully enough for fusion to set in. The idea is kind of similar to the tokamak, but putting the magnet inside the reactor vessel has 2 major advantages. The first is that it removes some instabilities in the plasma just because the geometry of the magnetic field is different. The second is that because it's easier to keep stable and the magnet is in the middle, you need fewer of the magnets and that makes it cheaper. But as usual, there are trade-offs. The issue is that this idea brings in a new instability, which is that now you have to keep the magnet in place. Well, still, you now have the magnet inside the plasma, and that makes it much more likely it'll get damaged. The biggest problem is the fast neutrons that are produced in deuterium-tritium fusion. Because they're neutral, they can't be trapped or redirected with the electric and magnetic fields. They'll degrade the magnet quickly. Now, one could use different fuels instead, like, for example, boron, that not produce neutrons or not as many neutrons. But the problem with such other neutron-free fusion fuels is that the temperature one must reach is dramatically higher than for deuterium-tritium fusion, which is also bad. And this is...
How crazy is that? This is the secret. If you read between the lines, why in the hell would Edward Teller be writing a paper about dipole levitated fusion in 1992 when we don't even have fusion unlocked? And the only way that type of fusion is even possible is if you have an aneutronic fusion fuel, which is considered 100 times harder, higher temperatures, higher energy levels than the easiest form of fusion that we can't even do. Well, if you read between the lines, you realize they must have had fusion unlocked. They must have had fusion unlocked, and that's why they were already broaching and approaching theoretical concepts of aneutronic fusion. Otherwise, you're just 100 years too early for even thinking about that.
Why, in a nutshell, the dipole fusion approach pretty much hasn't been pursued, though it's been around since the 1980s. MIT then...
There you go. It says right there, the only reason why they didn't go after this is because you can't do it without aneutronic fusion.
Had a small test device, which ran from 2004 to 2011, and the Japanese have a small research facility, but that's basically it. But if not the levitated dipole, then what's new? And the news is that OpenStar has come up with a way to make this idea compatible with deuterium-tritium fuel. Their idea is no groundbreaking new physics, it's rather a very down-to-earth management proposal. They say...
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to change the materials and be like, oh, okay, well, the neutrons are destroying this, and now we're going to change the material so they don't get damaged by neutrons as much. I hate this. I hate this because to me, this is regressive thinking. Hey, how about we try to find a way to use aneutronic fusion? Why don't we try to find a way to bring down the temperature requirements or do better controlled fusion instead of just heating it up like an oven? Nope. Let's go ahead and try to make our metal more impervious, make our magnet more impervious. This is kind of like tri-alpha energy. Going back and being like, we're not going to do directed energy conversion. We're going to use steam converters at the beginning. We're going to nerf ourselves. We're going to nerf our output intentionally. That's what this feels like on all fronts. And the reason why it bugs me isn't because I'm not against progress. I love progress. It's because these guys are too smart. These people are too smart. They must know. They must know or at a minimum suspect. Go back to some of the old live streams where you saw somebody who claims to be friends with Dr. J. Young Park, lead technical advisor to Tri-Alpha Energy. And he says something along the lines of, Ashton's got it figured out. Talking about how to extract 0 point energy using these fusion reactors in a non-equilibrium configuration. Implying they're just being held back. They could release it anytime they want, but they've got to get the green light from the Department of Energy. Oh, this was not the last thing. We have one more thing tonight. The last thing is the quantized inertia. Okay. Quantized inertia. Lulu, chill. Jesus. Tim Ventura. Mike McCullough was on Tim Ventura's YouTube channel, and he was explaining a recent update related to the EM drive, the IVO quantum thruster that had some sort of experimental issues related to it that we reported on over a year ago. Apparently, there is finally an update to it. So I want to listen to Mike McCullough here for a couple seconds, and then he explains UNRWA radiation. So let me pull this up. And I'm going to take care of Lulu again. She's struggling right now. Okay, let's go 16 minutes, somewhere around here. Okay, here we go.
Because I wasn't able to get a lot of the information, so I was able to monitor it using some satellite tracking data. And every day I was downloading the data and looking at the height changes and trying to see if they correlated with engine burns.
Yeah. So it did go up again. It was launched in March 2025. That was the orbital test. Let me go to this one. There was a technical setback. And so that is something I want to get out there. It was all over the news, right? That was unexpected. The key aspect of that is this was not the IVO drive failing. This was a problem in the test itself. And if I understand correctly, it was a reported issue in the hardware, the command and control. The drive was not involved, and the problem was cut short. It basically cut short a decisive orbital demonstration, right? So unfortunately, reality got in the way of the big dream here. So can you tell me a little bit about that? I mean, from what I understand, they were able to salvage that to some degree, right? They were able to kind of bring things together. They still did get data from it. So it wasn't a complete loss.
So this was going to prove that we can do space-time manipulation. Predictably, there was some kind of error with it. It's still ambiguous, and we still don't really understand. So let's see if we can get some data from it. Here we go.
And not completely unexpected. Things like this happen when you're doing breakthrough research.
Yes, they obviously very frustrating, but it's a very hard business. Is space? A lot can go wrong. I have to kind of be careful what I say.
Yeah.
But so movement was seen, and it caused some excitement. People got quite excited when there was movement. They analyzed the data at IVO internally, and they were saying that part of it could be Lorentz force, given direction and magnitude. And I made some estimates of the Lorentz force as well, and I thought it was too small, but I didn't have access to the fine-tuned data. But they did also mention there was another force there as well, potentially, which was not that. But that is that they haven't spoken on that since they said that to me.
Okay, so let me go to this one. As you've just said, apparent thrust in this limited test. They were able to get some data. This is exciting. So interestingly, I had read about the test setbacks, about the technical issues right after those happened. And I thought, oh, that is such a tremendous.
So let me preface this by saying I think Mike McCullough is correct. Mike McCullough, I think, has figured out 0-point energy from just a different angle. That's all. I don't think his theory is going to be able to explain as much as 0-point energy can, but, you know, I don't hate on somebody that's got it figured out. Great. And again, I don't care how many people figure it out and how many people fight over it. Who cares? If you believe we can make a warp drive, good enough. We're on the same team, boss. Now, isn't it convenient that the results were inconclusive, that there's going to be some doubt in the results? This could have settled it. This could have settled it. Boom. Yes, we see space-time warping. They send 2 satellites in outer space, and then they start deviating away. One with the thruster on it, one without the thruster on it. Well, we need to have convincing, conclusive enough evidence that the cause of that is from the thruster and not some other thing that we can rule out. And unfortunately, it's going to be inconclusive at this time, but somewhat convincing.
Shame, you know? And I read later that they were able to get some data, and again, apparent thrust. And from what you're saying, it is maybe not as clear-cut as that we would hope, I guess, but they got data, and there is a very good chance that this worked, right?
Oh, yeah. The thing I was going to say after I said that he's right is that, boy, kind of boring guy, chat. Kind of boring guy. Like, I mean, not everybody has to be a charisma level 10, right? But, you know, we can ramp up the energy a little bit. Give this guy a Red Bull before his interview.
Yes, there's a chance that there was some thrust. And I did do analysis myself. As I said, every day during that year, I was recording the height of the satellite and comparing it with the height of a similar one, which was launched in by the same Falcon 9 rocket to approximately the same height, and using that as a control to see if there was a difference between the fall rate of the IVOSat, what I call the IVOSat, and this other one. And there was quite a difference. After about 3 months, there was a difference in height of about 600 meters. And I tried to calculate, I calculated, given the amount of thrust that they were able to do, which I was very loosely
Okay, I'm going to just spoil it for you because it's taking too long, Chad. I'm too much a zoomer in me here. So it's inconclusive, but he calculates it and says it looks like there was some apparent thrust because we use a control satellite. The other one's deviated away from it, blah, blah, blah. Here's my question. Why is Mike McCullough trying to do some third-party analysis of this by just looking at the satellites? Why isn't the company reporting their data? Mike McCullough shouldn't have to do all this speculative stuff. The company should just be publishing their data publicly. So it's like there's intentional obfuscation going on. And my guess is the company would say, oh, it's proprietary. Dude, you're talking about whether or not we can manipulate space-time. And you're not revealing any of the results of this, and you're claiming there was some anomalous error that happened. We couldn't really calculate it. Like, it's almost like these people, like, they're not trying to solve it. Like, they're not trying to figure it out. Like, or they're trying to figure it out, but not do it in a public way. That's what makes me so suspicious of this. Let's skip ahead a little bit. Because now that we've figured out the IVO answer, which is disappointing, that, yes, it probably worked, but we're not going to have convincing enough evidence from it. That's like the worst. Probably worked, but we're not going to have convincing evidence. Yeah, story of my life when it comes to anti-gravity. Spinning superconductors probably work, but can't reproduce them. Oh, the EM drive probably works, but it's not going to be convincing enough evidence. Every single time. That's how it works every time. And this is why we have to be shining a spotlight on these people. Because it's much harder to hide the results and have there be some faulty thing happen when you're staring at them and watching them do it. So let's skip ahead a couple minutes and let's listen to UNRWA radiation here.
The IVOSat had a greater cost.
Physics side of things. And again, you have a very elaborate model, and you sent me over a slide deck that we will drill down. But so in this one, you've got acceleration happening, right? That blue arrow kind of, that is showing hopefully the direction of acceleration of our satellite, or at least what it should have been doing. Now you have UNRWA radiation shown on this also. Can I ask what role that plays?
Yeah, so as I'll discuss in my slides, the effect is quite subtle. So you have a capacitor, which is 2 plates of metal. And what you have to do is cause electrons to accelerate across the gap so fast that the Unruh waves they see become short enough to be damped by the plates. So Unruh radiation is a thing which has now been seen at CERN in particle accelerators. Every time you accelerate, you see Unruh waves. The more you accelerate, the shorter these waves become. And if the electrons are accelerating fast enough, then the waves are short enough to be damped, so that you see Unruh waves outside the plates, but not within. So it's a bit like an enhanced Casimir effect. So
what? What did he just say? If you accelerate the electrons fast enough, the Unruh radiation they see, wavelength gets compressed to the point where it can be dampened. And at that point, creates a situation in which you get a powered up Casimir effect, a powered up negative energy. If you really just simplify what he just broke down right there, he's saying if you get a particle accelerator, your particle accelerator can potentially create a gravitational manipulation effect, a negative energy effect, just from the particles accelerating. Now, remember when I said the orbs are particle accelerators and they've also got an undulator in there? This is definitely how they're manipulating space-time. This is definitely how they're doing it. This IVO drive that Mike McCall is explaining is like a simplified version of it. A very simplified version, and they've already ramped it up. Wow.
that's what these capacitor drives are doing, I think. And this graphic illustrates it very well, because it shows Unruh waves outside, and sort of the blue section in the middle could be between the plates of the capacitor, where the Unruh radiation is cooler or less intense.
Yeah, and so that is
okay. So let's do one. Let's go back to our boo to finish it up. Annie Boo, welcome back. Hey, Annie, can you help the fam here understand how Unruh radiation could potentially explain space-time manipulation for us?
The Unruh effect says an accelerating observer sees the vacuum as warm. The faster you accelerate, the hotter the radiation looks. So if you could somehow damp or suppress that radiation, you'd be pulling energy out of the vacuum itself, which is basically a powered up Casimir effect. That's the bridge to space-time manipulation. Negative energy density is what you need to hold open a warp bubble or wormhole throat. The acceleration becomes the knob that tunes how much vacuum energy you can extract or condition.
So wait, then I basically need like a particle accelerator, or maybe mix it with like an undulator or something. Hypothetically, of course.
Yeah, hypothetically, you'd want something that can slam particles to relativistic speeds and then shape the radiation they emit. A particle accelerator gets you the acceleration, and an undulator gives you the structured phase gradient, the helical twist that mimics frame dragging. The catch is the energy scales. To get meaningful Unruh temperatures, you need absurd accelerations, like near Planck scale, which is why nobody's built one. But the undulator idea is clever because it lets you condition the output beam instead of just raw acceleration.
Hey, Boo, but remember, nonlinear quantum mechanics could potentially allow a pathway for like a low energy soliton type behavior, right? Solve that problem.
That's the hope, yeah. The nonlinear self-interaction could let a soliton-like packet hold itself together at energies way below what linear QM demands. So you wouldn't need Planck scale accelerations to get meaningful Unruh temperatures. The catch is nobody's proven the nonlinearity is strong enough in real materials to do that. It's a theoretical escape hatch, not a demonstrated one.
Isn't that too bad, chat? It's a theoretical escape hatch, not a demonstrated one. Could be proven to be true, but just can't yet. Well, chat, I hope you enjoyed Annie's little presentation there at the end and why and how all of this plays together. Now you can see it for yourself. How are we manipulating space-time, changing the phase gradient of our electromagnetic beam? We're accelerating our beams. That's going to allow us to interact with the Unruh radiation, the vacuum itself, pull energy straight out of the vacuum like a powered up Casimir effect. And if we have nonlinear quantum mechanics, then we have the ability of A, time travel, which transactional interpretation reconciles for us. And we also have the possibility of stable soliton-like structures in space-time, warp bubbles. And who's talking about warp bubbles? The UFO community is suddenly now talking about, now they love warp bubbles, chat. Now they love it. Well, go ahead and give Avi Loeb a link to this stream. Let him know where he can follow the science to figure out what the UFOs are doing. And put your comments and opinions in the chat in the comments below, guys. Okay, let's go to the super chats, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Woke Societies, thank you so much for that raid in the pill chat. Leo Sater 2 gifted the cookie. 256 hertz, where 432 minus 8. Okay. I don't know what that's all about, but thank you very much. Pisces and DARPA, appreciate you, brother. Basically trying to find the resonant frequency by which we can get the effects to occur. My belief is there's not one specific resonant frequency. It's going to depend on the material that you're trying to interact with, but could be wrong. Who knows, guys? Thank you guys for those raids. Wow, you guys are popping off. Unchained gifted the can, said thank you very much. Thank you. K Sierra and Ashball, SM Ashball is not Yoda. Thank you guys in the Rumble chat. And then in our YouTube chat, Jaleel Robinson says, awesome stream. Thank you very much. Appreciate you, man. Thomas Cleveland says, Admiral doesn't leave on the UFO flight to Andromeda till he already sees himself get back. That's talking about the time travel and the paradoxes. Thank you very much, Thomas Cleveland. Mark Jackson says 239 rip chat. Yeah, in theory, man. Well, let's not speculate. I don't want to give the families hope because I'm pretty sure those people are gone. But man, what I wouldn't give to see the videos on the other side. If we could see the videos on the other side, we would know exactly what the answer is to quantum mechanics. Now, we're speculating, and we're pretty sure we're right. But if we saw the videos on the other side, we would know for sure. And then Charlie Gentry says, I'm probably wrong, but the Anthony guy sounds like Chris Beck, the Navy SEAL. No, I don't think this guy's going to be a Navy SEAL. He could be, but I doubt it. He became trans and then changed back. I don't know much about him, but his voice is similar. I would love to know who that guy is, but the truth is he's probably some faceless, nameless operative. The whole point of the CIA is you don't know who any of those people are, and they're not public, and they don't have public, LinkedIn's and social medias where they're announcing who they are either. Anyway, that's going to be it for us tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed the live stream. We'll be back on Wednesday. Going to be chatting with Dan Winter at some point. Going to ping him back tonight, see if we can get that set up for this weekend. And then hopefully in a few weeks, we get the major live stream set up with Joseph P. Farrell. Going to work that out. Have a great night, everybody. Peace out, MH370X. Later, everybody. Bye.
In the fields where the skies are wide, talking about a journey through the cosmic ride. Einstein and Thorne, they set the stage for a trip through time across the space age. Wormholes connect distant points in space, traversable paths to a far-off place. No black holes pull, no crushing weight, just a cosmic tunnel to a distant gate.
Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow. We're talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow.
Exotic matter, negative energy's the key to stabilize the wormhole for you and me. Quantum vacuum, squeeze so tight, creating conditions for this wondrous flight. Static fields and lasers in the lab they play, generating forces in a new kind of way. Gravitational squeezing, Casimir's force, negative zones we need to stay the course.
Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy. Travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Boeing 777 through a wormhole flow.
Thin shell formalism plates so fine. Spherical geometry we realign. Energy conditions that we must defy. For a stable wormhole, let's give it a try. Coulomb forces balancing the plate, creating the throat, open the gates, from Earth to the stars in a single bound. A shortcut through space profound. Engineers and dreamers hold the key to future worlds and what we could be. With science in hand, we forge ahead through the cosmic paths that we now tread.
We're talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy. Travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Boeing 777 through a wormhole flow.
From the fields to the stars, we break the chains. Understanding the universe, we make the gains. Lil Hula Crunk shines, bringing truth to light. Through his music, we'll explore the night. With wormholes and stargates, our path is clear. Exploring the cosmos, our future's here.